All right, AP Lit, this is my very brief screencast to get you ready for what's going to happen to you on Friday in class, which is your first timed right poetry explication. Just a side note, this is to, number one, not to torture you, but this is to get you ready for the timed writing poetry explication, which is your first essay that you will write on the AP test. So, only thing I really want to point out is that if you want anything further to look over to prepare yourselves for the timed write on Friday, you can look at in our classwork tab. I have this resource that says Poetry Explication Resources. You guys used this before when I asked you to grade or give a grade for a sample poetry explication. So, one of the things on here, just quickly open it up. You're free to look at it. It's a description of what a poetry explication is. Basically, it's just a literary analysis of a poem. There is a how to guide on here as far as a color coded example of Robert Frost stopping by woods on a snowy evening. All right, remember I said that the best way to approach a poetry explication is to move through it chronologically, which is something that is explained in this poetry explication, how and what. But you can see how with this poem it goes through this analysis stanza by stanza. All right, so if your poem comes in one huge giant chunk, you're going to want to figure out where you think there is a natural break. You're going to break it in half, break it in thirds, whatever. Finally, this is the one that I had you guys grade before, so you can see how there's yet another example. All right, and then the last thing, this is the link to the rubric that we will be using. So even though it says 6 points on here, we use the AP rubric. Next week, we'll be reading some of these. I'm going to take all the names off and we're going to do kind of like a group discussion about some of your writing. So that should be more motivation to make sure it's your best work. But this is going to be worth a significant amount of points, right? So no fewer than 50 for this timed write. All right, that being said, those are your resources that are on the classwork tab. The poem that you're going to write about is the one that you picked for your screencast. So you have all day in class Thursday to go through and make sure you're really understanding this poem, annotate any kind of notes you want on this poem. So it already gives you an edge up from what you would have on the AP test. You're going to see something like this posted on Friday on Google Classroom. This is what an AP prompt would look like. And basically, I'm asking you a really generic question. And that question is, in a short essay, explain how Robert Frost uses poetic devices, anything from form, structure, language, and sound, to develop the meaning of the poem as a whole. All right, I'm even going to give you these little like buzzwords, which you would not get on the AP test. These are different things. You don't have to have one from each. You're just choosing the ones that you think are the strongest poetic devices that develop your interpretation. It should go without saying, but remember, an interpretation or like a theme is not one word. So I pulled up two of last year's examples, just so you guys could kind of see. This one was Diego's, and just this is no big deal. Mending Wall by Robert Frost is a poem that questions the validity of borders through its use of figurative language and tone shifts. So Diego did a good thing because we've got title, author, we've got an overall idea. He followed the template for the statement of meaning, and he gives me specifically what he's going to be analyzing in this explication. Figurative language, which is good because it's a big umbrella term, and tone shifts. Although not entirely clear, the narrator's thoughts are written in a way which perpetuates the idea. Here's the theme, here's the interpretation. He dislikes the wall he has built and feels as though his hard work was not worth the final result. All right, you can see just based off of Diego's first topic sentence, he's going to go through this chronologically. The poem starts off with a very lighthearted tone as the narrator describes pleasant springtime imagery and evaluates the condition of the wall and makes gaps that even two can pass abreast. So, what I like that he did, he has a topic sentence that tells me where in the poem we're at. He right away ties his example back to the literary devices, poetic devices that he mentioned in his statement of meaning, and he has an embedded quote. You have to have quotes in this, right? So Diego's isn't too long, so this doesn't have to be something really huge. Diego's probably shouldn't be this short, but that's okay. Another real quick example here, we'll kind of just go through. This was Danny's from last year. He wrote about home burial. Again, just looking at the opening sentence because it's the most important one. In Robert Frost's narrative poem Home Burial, a poem that explores the ways in which humans respond to a loss of control, the use of specific choices in diction, so he's going for just word choice, paired with the visual structure of the lines of the poem itself, so he's looking at, the different breaks in meter, create a platform on which Frost can present the idea that when loss is largely out of one's control, people respond by grasping for power and autonomy over oneself in rapid succession. And then Danny goes on because it's Danny and it's probably wonderful, but you don't have to add more than just what the statement of meaning calls for. All right, Danny's is a little bit longer. I believe the pink part was what he ran out of time with. So you have to remember you're racing against the clock. I'm not looking for a 3-page essay because this is timed. You should be able to get at least 1 page typed. It should be not just one giant body paragraph. So because you have the advantage of me telling you ahead of time that you are going to be writing this and that you are going to be familiar with the poem, I don't want you to outline anything because I want you to have the experience of a timed writing. But don't do nothing today. All right, Thursday in class. I'm available if you guys have any questions, so just let me know. All right, today's your last work day for your screencast project. Otherwise, you're doing it over the weekend.